Hi everyone, I'm Pam Kearns and welcome to Beading on a Loom. This is going to be a three-part series. Today we're going to be discussing some of the looms available on the market, some of what the benefits and drawbacks of some of the looms. They all do the same thing, but some looms are better for to create some projects than other projects. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then you'll see the loom that I'm using today. It's called the Jewel loom, and we'll get it warped up and we'll see what time is. So next week, the plan is to start the beading if we haven't started it today, how to read a pattern and stuff like that. So you do have some patterns in the handouts you got. If you're beading along with me, great. But having it 3 weeks over 3 weeks gives you time to work on it. And then the last week, what we'll do is we'll take it off the loom and I'll show you how to finish it. Okay, so that's the plan. And so why don't we get started? So let me just change cameras here. Okay, so here's my bead board. I'm just going to move my camera up so that you see more. Now, loom work, it's my understanding that the First Nations people did start this technique. Weaving, of course, has been around since people figured out they needed to wear clothes to keep the cold off of them. And, you know, fabric weaving has been around for eons. Think of some of the beautiful things, you know, done by the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Babylonians, and so on. So these are some examples of woven bracelets, and these are done completely with beads. And
so pretty.
They are, and they're not hard to make.
Wow, I like that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, so here's just some. When you're doing weaving, it's good to have consistently sized beads. If, for example, beads from the Czech Republic are notorious, some are thick, some are thin, some maybe are a little bit, you know, not even square. So my preference is to use Japanese beads. Two brands, Miyuki and Toho. It's like Coke and Pepsi. They're essentially the same thing, minor differences, and people do have a preference. So this is done with size 11s, and it's a smaller bead. As you can see, you get more beads in the width. It's available in a huge amount of colors. So, I mean, you know, you can't, it's like being a painter. You can't paint without the colors. And beading is like that too. That's how we get such big stashes.
Now, those are round beads or square beads?
These are round beads.
Okay. Can you do it with square?
You can certainly do it with square.
Okay.
The one thing about square is that because they have solid edges, it may not bend, like it may not go into a loop as easily.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Whereas round beads will facilitate that. As I say, these are size 11, so they are smaller. This is the same bracelet, different colors, same width, same everything, but done using size 8s.
Okay.
So they're both 13 rows wide and both done with that diamond pattern. So the one thing you may notice on this, I'll just put it back down, is that there's sort of an in and out. That's because I used two different brands of beads. Toho beads are a little bit more square. They're round beads, but they're more square. The Miyuki are just a little bit thinner and a little bit more round. And you can force that, you know, where you're going in and out and make that part of your design. It wasn't intended to be part of the design, but I like it. And so you can force that even more.
Yeah, it's pretty. I like it like that though.
Yeah, I do too. There's another one, all with size 8. But again, another one with size 8. This one's a little more subtle, the colors on it. And these are delica beads. Delica beads are a cylinder bead, and they were actually invented for weaving, for bead weaving like
Oh.
this. And I'll see if you can bring this down just a little bit. Okay. There, as you can see, there's not a lot of bumpiness. So for example, if I brought this one up, the shapes of the beads on this one, the surface is a lot more bumpy, whereas the
Mhm.
cylinder beads are much more smooth.
Yeah, it
And
is.
it gives you a much different fabric. So yeah, so it all depends on what you want to do. The Miyuki beads, the cylinder beads are wonderful to work with. Because they're smaller though and flatter, it's easier to miss a bead. So that was the only thing I found when I was working with them. So, but there's so many colors in that available in beads. There's just, I mean, your opportunities are just absolutely endless. And because you've created a fabric, I can actually embellish on top of this.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can actually add beads with needle and thread on top of this. So that'll be another project.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me put this back up so you see a little bit more of my space. So that's a little bit about what, loom work can look like. Now I have done these as a bracelet. But it's not unusual to see bands like this around hats or attached onto leather for belts. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of uses when it comes to beading on a loom. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now what kind of looms are out there? Well, there's a lot of them. And most people know about looms. This is a very old style. It's been around for ages. Um, it's just a basic beading loom, and I call it a coat hanger loom because it
Uh,
looks like you've bent a coat hanger. But what it is a formed piece of wire. It's got a little bit of grid work here, and that's what separates the warps. And I'll get into what warps are in a moment. And it's got these dowel things on the end, and you attach your warps to these dowel ends. What's nice about this loom is that you can wrap your beadwork around here. So you can actually, wrap it around like that and make it longer than this set width.
mm-hmm.
So
It's
my
nice
my
talking.
it does, yeah. My thing that I don't like is that this can stick out into the beadwork and distort it a little bit, but you just make sure it's not too terribly tight. Another loom that's on the market, this is called a Rix loom. And this is a bigger piece. Let me see if I can lift this up even more. Okay, so that's what it looks like.
Wow, it looks big.
It is fairly big. This is probably good 14 to 16 inches. So that's 8. Yeah, it's about 15 inches.
Wow, that
So,
is big.
but what's nice about this loom is that you can adjust this part and do a set width on it. And your warp goes around these two bars. So you actually only have 2 pieces of thread right there to finish off, as opposed to regular ones that you have all the threads that you need to finish off. So it can be a little harder to use because it comes down to a point here, a little bit more for setup and planning, but it does work. It does
Mm-hmm.
work. So it is adjustable right here, and I can slide this part to however wide I want it, up to about, I think it's about, yeah, about 10 inches of workable space. Okay, so that is a Rick's loom. It actually retails about, in Canadian dollars, probably around 75.
Wow.
65 to 75. So it is not an inexpensive loom.
Mm-mm.
So the coat hanger loom that I showed you retails, it is an inexpensive loom. It's under $20, probably closer to 15.
I used to have one like that. I don't think it's around anymore though.
It is still around. It's changed its packaging.
Yeah, I don't think I have it around my house
Oh,
anymore now.
okay. Yeah, it
Yeah.
used to have that. It used to come in a red box with a picture of an Indian chief on it, which
Yeah,
was,
my
and
girlfriend gave it
that's,
to me for Christmas one year.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why they've changed the packaging. So
Uh,
this we've gone from the big to the tiny. This
that
is
is tiny.
actually a portable loom,
Oh, I like
and
that.
it's not big. It's not big at all, but it's perfect if you want to do earrings or pendants. So
Mm-hmm.
this is like 3.5. It's about the size of a credit card.
I was gonna say it was about 3 to 4 inches.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Not,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried it. It does not have ends to finish. What you do is once you finish, you pull the warps,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes a little bit of time, but you pull the warp so that it's against the beading. And
Oh,
then you have only the two threads. This is something that I made on it.
that's so pretty.
Yeah, so it's and it's not a tiny piece, but
No.
what was nice is that it allows me to put a piece of wire in there and form its own bail. So then I
Mm-hmm.
can attach chain or whatever to this and wear it. I could also attach a pin back to it and wear it that way too. So that is something that is really handy. And of course, there's some really high-end looms out there, the Merricks and that, which they retail for like minimum $100, and that's just more than what I need. So
Yeah, I
this
got
is,
that one.
you got a Merricks?
No, I got this one you got here.
This is, yeah, I love this loom.
Mm-hmm.
This, in fact, I've got several. I actually do tapestry weaving on this as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a jewel loom. It was created, Juliana Hudgens created this, probably about 8 to 10 years ago now. It's put out by Beading, and it is inexpensive. You can buy just simply the loom and with this and that for probably around $15. There's a whole kit that you can get that's a little bit over 20, but to be honest, you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
How this works is, I'm just going to sit up closer here. You press it against yourself and you bend it. And at some point, it bends like this. And at some point, you're thinking it's going to break in half. It's going to break in half.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't usually. I know of 2 people it's broken in half. I haven't had mine break in half yet, but it comes with this bar. And what happens is that this bar hooks into these holes. On the back side are these 2 little nubs.
Mm-hmm.
So you press it easier against yourself so that it bends, and the end of this goes in there. So what happens, it's bent like that. We're going to warp it, and then you take this part out, and that gives it the tension.
Oh,
It's
okay.
trying to go straight again. So let's talk a little bit about thread. The best thread for a warp, and the warp is what goes from one end of the loom to the other. Okay, it provides the skeleton, and it's the beads sit between the warp threads. What you want to use is a thread that does not stretch. And Toho brand is not bad. It has a little bit of stretch, but not much. This is actually Nymo thread. And Nymo thread started off being an upholstery thread. And so it is strong. It is a nylon thread, as you can see, it's bonded. put out by what used to be called Coates and Clark. It's now just called Coates. Nymo thread comes on the little tiny bobbins or on the cones.
Okay.
The ones on the cones actually are better.
Okay.
This is, if you think of, say, a serger machine or something that's more industrial, this would be the thread sitting on top of the machine as opposed to on the bobbin, which is sitting under the machine. So the upper thread is stronger. It's very limited colors, black or white. And I couldn't find my black anywhere, so I'm going to use white, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to turn it black. So
what about the S-Lawn? Is that any good?
S-Lawn, I haven't used S-Lawn. C-Lawn thread is not bad. Comes in lots of colors. It does fray a little bit, but for this purpose, it should be okay.
Yeah, because this one, the S-Lawn that I bought was recommended when I bought the Loom.
Yep.
To buy this, and I think there's about 12 different colors in the tube. So I should be able to use that.
Yep, you should be able to use that. S-Lawn, it's a safe, again, Coke and Pepsi between C-Lawn and S-Lawn. Created by Beading. And but yeah, it has, I don't believe it has any stretch either.
So it doesn't feel like it anyway.
No. What happens if you use something with stretch? Things like Miyuki thread has stretch, Hana thread has stretch. And what happens is that when you take it off of the loom, it does this.
Oh.
Yeah. So under tension, it's nice and straight. But the minute you take the tension off, it buckles.
I've had a couple that did that on the other loom I used to work on.
Yeah, it's your thread. It's the warp thread that buckles. So that is, yeah, that's what causes that. So how do we start? Well, I'm going to start simply by taking my thread. This thread's a little slippery, but I'm going to take my thread simply and do a slip knot. Because it's slippery, I'm going to wrap it around my fingers twice. Okay, take it off my fingers and pull it through and just let it form that slip knot. Okay, on the back, we have this nub, and I'm simply going to put it around that and tighten it. You want to make sure it doesn't go around the metal on either end, just around the plastic nubs. Okay. So the pattern that I'm going to use, this is the pattern, and it is 13 beads wide. So the number of warps I need is 14 because there's a warp on both sides of the beads. So, which means I'm going to need 14 rows of thread. So I'm going to start from here. Yeah, but that's okay. I'm going to start from here. I'm going to take it around the front. I have added little lines just with a permanent marker on both ends, making sure that these line up. And that's going to help me from having to count constantly how many over. So I'm going to start it right there. Okay. So I'm just on to the left of this line, and I'm going to bring it to the same place on the other side. And by pre-marking it, it's so much easier. And I'm going to take it around to the back, wrap it around that nub that's on this side, put it into a groove. And because I'm going to use size 8 beads, I'm going to put it into every other groove. If I wanted something, if I was going to use small beads, I would put it into every groove. But because my beads are going to be larger, we're going to do every other. So, and I bring it back to my original side, missing with, again, every other.
You don't wrap it around that nub on the back every
And I
time?
take it around the nub. Yep.
Oh, you do go around the nub.
Yeah. Are you working along with me?
I'm trying.
Okay. And it does help if you sort of use your other hand just to help guide things and keep them in place.
If I had my light when I get home, it'll be easier
Oh
because
yeah.
I'll have my project light.
Yep.
I don't have that here.
Okay, so I'm just going back and forth from side to side. And Cindy and BG, when you watch the video, if you have any questions about anything that's on the video, of course, you know that you can email me at any time. And the email will be with this video. Okay, so we're just going back and forth. Again, making sure that I'm only catching the plastic nub. If you're using another loom, warp it up according to the instructions that come with your loom. And by the way, if you don't have a loom, it is easy to make a loom actually with nails and a picture frame.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, you just pound the nails into sort of an equidistant, not very far, and you can create a loom that way. And that's good for tapestry as well as beadwork. Yeah, there's quite a few videos on YouTube on how to do that.
Yeah, YouTube is really good for stuff.
Yeah, can't ask it questions, but it's there.
No, you can't.
Okay, so as you can see, I'm just going back and forth. And now, before I go further, I'm just going to count to see how many I've got. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oh, I got a few more to do. Okay. I'm just pulling thread off my spool here. So when you are doing this, do not pre-cut your thread. Okay, because you have no idea how long this is going to be. It's surprising how much thread this uses.
Well, I'm just looking at it as I'm going. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's a lot of thread.
And you can use the same thread, another piece. Oops, now I just noticed this is not lined up properly. So I'm just going to pull it back just a little bit. It was just on the last one. There, lined it up properly. Don't worry if your thread isn't quite centered on the loom. It's not going to make a difference. This one is definitely not going to be centered, and I'm hoping that I don't have to redo it because I did get it over a little bit further than perhaps I should have.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the same thing on mine. It's going to be over too far. 1, 2.
Are you using one of the patterns that were in the instructions?
I haven't even, looked at those.
Uh-huh.
I should have, I guess, but I haven't.
Well,
I was just going to see what was there and then go from there.
Yeah, it's easy to make up your own patterns for this. Pick up any graph paper because this is a square graph. And get yourself some colored pencils and start doodling.
I love doodling, so.
Yeah, sort of Zentangling for the loom. Now let me see what I've got here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oops. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Oh, I've done one more. Okay, so.
I got exactly 14.
Yay! I'm just double check before I tie off. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Yay. Okay, so tying off is a little bit, oops, more difficult. Not difficult, but a little more consuming. So at the back, let me zoom in on this just so you can see a little bit more. So here's my loose thread. On this one, I have come back. It happens to meet my tail thread there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around the nub a few times. So by a few, I mean 4 or 5. And I'm going to just cut my thread off a little bit. The reason I wrapped it around the nub a couple or 4 or 5 times to help it stay, so that if I do happen to release it or it slips out of my hand, hopefully it won't completely get out of my get away from me. So what I want to do, I could tie it to the tail thread, but if you're not on the side of your tail thread, all I'm going to do after I've already wrapped it a few times, I'm going to take it around again and keeping just a gap here, and I'm going to take the tail through that loop, and that is going to create a slip knot. So again, the slip knot, take it around, take the end of the tail through that knot. And as I say, this is a bit of a slippery thread.
It's off screen.
Oh, sorry, there. Okay, so I've done 3 slip knots on that. It should stay. So what we want to do now, let me zoom out. So now what I'm going to do is again, press it against me. And I'm putting my hand like this, because when I bend it, I don't want these threads slipping out of the grooves. So I'm just going to bend it, and you can see how it's gone slack, like there. So I'm going to take this and bend it, put a little bit of pressure there in the middle, and that helps it come out. I remove this bar, and this is now nice and snug.
Oh, okay.
And so that is what takes the pressure, the tension off of that.
Okay.
Okay, so there, this is all warped up. And as I say, I wanted my black thread, but I have safely put it somewhere where it's safest for me. I blame my budgie. Maybe he's moving it around again. So
I like safe places.
I know they're safest for me. That's the whole thing. So the thing about nylon thread, and all beading thread is nylon thread, is that you can color it. So if you have a permanent marker, and these Sharpies come in a full rainbow of colors now, I can simply run. It won't be quite as dark as, say, the darkest black threads, but I can color it. And it's going to work. Remember, thread does have two, more than one side, so you can color it. Okay, hold on. I'm going to, this one is drying out. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a big honking one here. Let's see if it makes a difference. Oh yeah, big difference.
That'll wash off your board too, won't it?
It is permanent. It's not like, I mean, the Sharpies are permanent, and it's not like you necessarily wash your bracelets.
No. You should be able to, though, get it off your board, I would think, with rubbing alcohol.
You could, if you wanted to.
Like, I'm just talking the board, not the thread.
Okay.
If you get any on the board.
Yeah, probably. Actually, you could also, instead of using pure rubbing alcohol, use your hand sanitizer.
Yes.
Your hand sanitizer may give you a little bit more control.
Yeah, it smells nicer too, some of the
It
scented
does.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of alcohol in that hand sanitizer. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have, now you can see the threads.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, as I say, do this any color. So say the majority of your beads were green, but you didn't happen to have green thread, you could then color it if you wanted to. Now, the other thing you can do if you are a little concerned about excess is just to take a Kleenex or something and just wipe it, and that'll take any excess off. And I was just looking for my Kleenex that I have put out of my reach. So here. So it really, there's not a whole lot that's coming off. And it will dry quickly. And any smell from the Sharpies will disappear as well. So that's, I mean, that's what's come off, just a little bit. And once it's dry, it's, as I say, it's a permanent marker. Okay. So for my weft now, and the weft threads are what's going to go across the warps. And it's the weft thread that is going to hold your beads. So I'm just looking, I'm not seeing a black, but I do have a dark brown. So I shall use it. It won't be noticed, and I can always change colors again. Okay, so as I say, my pattern is going to be that. I'm going to use a ruler. You could use any kind of anything that gives you a straight edge to follow along a pattern. The kind of needle I do like to use, this is a big hole needle, or big eye needle rather, and the entire eye, or the entire needle is an eye like that. You do want a needle that is wider than your beadwork. Okay, so because you want to be able to, you're going to be putting your beads in there. So on my pattern, I want to start with putting one of these in the middle of my wrist. So it's going to sit there as a focal. So I am going to grab a pen, and I've got this bright pink pen here. And I'm going to start my beading with this line right there. And so what I'll do is I'll bead in one direction and repeat the pattern as necessary. And then when I've done it as far as I want, I will come back and start the other side and bead as far back. When you are doing loom work, there is more upfront preparation of doing stuff. How long does your bracelet need to be? What kind of ends are you going to use? How are you going to finish it? All of that makes a difference as to how long your beadwork is. I really like using these tubes. These are tube ends. These I did get from Miyuki, or not Miyuki, from Bead Effects. And these are 30 millimeters wide, and they work perfectly for loom work that is 13 beads wide. So, and what they look like when they're finished is that. So the end of the beads actually sit inside. On the last session, what I will do is show you how to end it. and with a row of size 11 beads. So they're smaller beads. And we're going to tie these warp ends together, and they're all going to sit inside on both ends. So it gives a very nice finish. There's many ways of how to finish beadwork on a loom.
I'm gonna have to order those from BeadFX, I guess.
Yeah, these are from BeadFX. They're just called tube ends. These are the 30 millimeters. Where's that other one? This one. Let's see.
That
This
looks
one.
smaller.
It is. This is the 19.
19-inch. Okay.
Yeah. And it also comes in 16. So you sort of have to predetermine how you're going to end it and what kind of a clasp you're going to use. So that when you take it off the bead off the loom, you know it's going to fit you. That's one of the biggest, not a drawback, but a consideration when you're doing loom work, is how are you going to finish it? And as I say, I do like the finish of these, but there are other ways of doing it. One of the other ways is using these clamps, and they're here. So, and they fit like that. So you pinch them on and you squeeze it. And these come in different widths. It's not quite as nice. Sometimes you have to put a little bit of fabric in there, so there is something a little bit more. It's possible. It's not my preferred finish, but depending on what you're doing, you know, that could be exactly what you want. I could also sew this onto a strip of suede and attach something to the suede so that I would have a different look. So, you know, it's just it depends on what you want. Okay. So we'll just, because we don't need the ends yet. Let's put those away for now. And I'm going to grab a length of thread. This happens to be KO thread. The stretch on a weft does not matter because it's not going to be under tension like the warps are. So I'm going to pull myself about a wingspan. And because I want this to start in the middle, I'm going to start beading in the middle as well.
I guess Fireline is too heavy for this, hey?
You could use it. If you're using it as weft, it's not a problem.
Okay.
If you're using it as warp, the knotting could be a bit of a problem. But
Okay.
what you'll do anyways is to secure your knots with either hypo cement, or I use clear nail polish, just so your knots don't come undone.
Do you know, I don't have any patterns in my mail. No, I've got what's here. It's just got the picture of a diamond.
Yeah.
One,
and no instructions?
No instructions, just picture the diamond one and just the like what I need, but that's it. No instructions.
Okay, so if okay, well, let me stop screen sharing and screen share, because I do have your instructions.
Oh, nope, I found it, sorry.
Okay, so you do have it. Yay. So it looks like,
sorry.
Yeah, so yeah, it starts with there.
Oh my, lots different. Oh.
Yep. So there's the overview of the looms. And then a little bit about the beads and that. Okay.
Yeah, so there was an over arrow I hadn't seen.
That's okay. Yeah, okay, let me go back to sharing the
sorry, people.
That's okay, guys. You know, if there's ever a problem with instructions, email me and I'll get another set of instructions off to you. I know Boomerang does their best. Now, to attach my thread, it's really easy. All you do, leave yourself about 4 inches for a tail, because you're going to weave the tail end in. but all you need to do is simply tie an overhand knot, not even a double knot, just like that. I'm left-handed, so I am going to work from left to right. If you are right-handed, chances are you're going to want the knot on this side because you're going to be placing your beads this way. Okay. And if you happen to put it on the wrong side, then simply flip it over because you can bead on either end. Okay, so I'm going to, now there are loom work needles. They're longer, but to be honest, they're really expensive. All you need is something that is somewhat flexible and wide enough to get, for the width of your loom. Okay, so let's move this out of the way and let me pull out some beads here. So I am using Miyuki beads, although one of these, there's a couple of Toho colors in there. So my background is black. And these are sort of inspired by the range of colors, what's called Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, which so
the rainbow colors.
The rainbow colors. Yep. So purple, some red.
Oh, I'm using Miyuki as well.
Oh, good.
Oh, such pretty colors. I can't decide.
Yeah. I like to work with basically primary colors. And so this is, if you think about it, the three primary colors and how they mix. Okay, so I am going to start here in the middle by putting my straight edge along where the row I'm going to pick up. So because I'm left-handed, I'm going to read left to right. I'm beading from left to right. So I'm going to pick up red, purple, blue, green, and I'm just following along. Oh, I forgot to put out my yellows. I thought it looked a little anemic there.
That's a cute saying, a little anemic.
Yeah, a little anemic. Okay, so red. Now I'm back to, oh, I forgot my orange. When in doubt, read your pattern.
I look anemic most days. That's only because of the treatments. Right?
Yeah. And then yellow. And again, green. So we're just going back in our colors here. And then purple and red. So there are my colors. The first bunch are always the hardest because the goal is to get one bead in each section. And sometimes you just have to let it do it. So if you find it's a little wide, you could use a piece of cardboard under it just to hold it. This is going to get bunched up a little bit. So I am going to very carefully switch fingers. And I could manipulate all of this and move it around. So I'm going to leave my finger under there. This is all underneath the warps. So I've pushed it up from underneath the warps, and I'm going to keep my finger there while I pull my needle out and move my thread along like that. Now I'm going to bead with my needle going over the warps. Again, through the beads. Let me zoom in. So right now, everything is there. I'm pushing it up through the warps. That weft thread right now is only under the warps. And now I'm going through again, and you can see the needle going through. making sure that that needle is on top of the warps. Now, when you've got your needle through, you can take your finger off because it's not going to fall apart. And I'm going to tighten this up. That's how wide my beading is going to be. Now, how tight should I make it? Not so tight that, that you're buckling it, but you don't want to see any space. I find it helpful just to tie this together, just like that. There's my first row done.
You were off camera when you were tying.
Oh, I'm sorry. So all I did was tie an overhand knot, just a single. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. No.
Yeah,
that
there it
should be
is. So
easy enough. Yep.
there's, okay, let me get my hand out of the way. So I've just got a single knot. I'm just going to tighten it up. I'm going to put 2 knots in it, only because it's got a mind of its own.
Mm.
And this is just to keep the width. Okay, so whatever can go wrong wants to go wrong on screen. There we go. It's tightened up now. As I said, this thread tends to be a little on the slippery side. So the first row is in there. Let's look at our next row, and we're going to be going in this direction. So we've done this row. If you want, an easy way is just to check off that you have done it. But if you follow your pattern, you'll be fine. So we're going to move up one more row. And on my needle, I'm going to pick up the colors that are running along the edge. So black, red, purple, blue,
green, yellow.
Yeah. And then orange.
Orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, red.
Yep. Purple, red, and black. So there should be 13 beads, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Again, under the warps. And I'm going to poke them through. And it's much easier this time because your first row has got the warps in the right place. Okay. So I'm pushing it through, and you can actually see the beads coming through. Again, I'm going to switch hands. So it's snug enough that it's staying there. Keep my hand there, my finger there as I pull through. As my thread catches on everything around. At this point, I am pushing so that when I go through the beads again, A, I'm not missing a bead, and B, that my thread is actually sitting on top of the warps. Now, and you want it to sit on top of the warps because if you miss and go under a warp, it can pop through. It can be fixed later. It's not the end of the world.
So you go under, you run the thread under the warps and then run the thread over the warp, right?
That's correct. So your
Okay.
beads are actually sandwiched
Okay.
between 2 passes of thread. And then we just follow up. Well, that was our row. We're now going to do this row. And we pick up the beads in order according to the pattern. So I'm just, okay, so blue, purple, red, and 2 black.
Unfortunately, I have to leave.
Okay,
and
you
the
keep,
rows.
thank you so much. I'm going to keep on, I've got a couple more minutes here. So I'm
Okay.
going to continue, and what we'll do next week, we will review how to put the beads on, a little bit more about this week, and then we'll do more beading. Okay.
I'll do some homework too.
Sounds good. Okay, take care, Maureen.
Thanks, Pam.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Bye-bye. Okay, so we'll just continue here. And again, from underneath the warps and pushing the beads through. Okay. put my finger underneath. You do want to make sure that the thread is not going to wrap around your hand. Keeping my finger in place. And then bringing my needle back through the beads, making sure as best I can that the needle is going through the beads on top of the warp thread. Okay, so that's 3 rows in place. Let me just zoom out a little bit. So that's what we have so far. So I think we'll stop now. We got further than I anticipated, which is good. So today what we had done, we covered what some of the looms are, covered a little bit about beads, how to warp. I gave you a tip there on if you don't have the right color thread or the color of thread that you want, you can certainly color a white thread using permanent markers. And then I've also shown you how to read a pattern and how to translate that and put your beads on. If you have any questions, please email me. The email address will be with this video, and I'm happy to get back to you, and will do my best to get back to you before the next class. Okay? So Cindy and BG, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you, I hope, next week. Let me just stop sharing here. See you next week, same time, for part 2. Okay? Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.